future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Pierre Lindh.
Tsachi Maimon, it's great to have you back on the podcast, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you very much, Pierre. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, thank you. I'm doing great here. It's Malta, 15 degrees. Still wearing my jumper here because I guess I've acclimated to the Maltese weather here after 12 years on this island. But happy nonetheless. I'm enjoying this weather. And you're in Spain still, or?
Yes, I'm in Spain, in Madrid. So
Brilliant.
I'm happy to say that today also we are seeing the double-digit weather.
Very nice, very nice.
Usually it's very cold in this period. So
very nice.
Luckily, we have good weather today. Yeah.
Happy to hear that. Tsachi, I want to start this podcast a little bit differently than I usually start most podcasts, because usually we jump straight into the conversation, and I usually kind of skip introductions because I think, you can kind of read the description of the podcast, or you know who the guests are and so on, and they're usually not so interesting. But today, I want to just give a little bit of homage to Tsachi Maimon here, the CEO of Aspire Global, because obviously you are going through a quite interesting period at the moment with Aspire Global, with the bid from Neogames to acquire Aspire Global. And I just want to start this podcast by giving you some credit and giving you a little bit thoughts from my end, and just to showcase to the audience the incredible work that you have done. So I've been in touch with one of your employees here before the podcast, just to kind of highlight a little bit the journey that Aspire Global has had since you joined the company. And you joined obviously from Playtech in 2013. At that time, Aspire Global had 235 employees. And you had a revenue of 12.4 million in the quarter where you joined Aspire Global. Fast forward to 2021, you had 537 employees. You've grown the company to, with a revenue in the Q3 at 21 of 58.6 million. So let me just repeat that: 12.4 million when you joined, and 58.6 million at the time now before when Neogames announced that they are acquiring you. Aspire Global has outperformed every single listed iGaming company in the stock markets since the beginning of the pandemic, with your share price has doubled in the time since the pandemic. 800% you have managed to increase the share value from. That is outperforming the likes of Evolution, MGM, who has been performing really well, Catena Media, Kindred, and the entire industry. I asked as well this employee why it is that you guys have been performing so well, and specifically, you as CEO, what, if you summarize it to a couple of words, would you describe Tsachi Maimon as a CEO? And the 4 words that I got replied back to was that he is very present, he is very smart, he is very goal-oriented, and he is very fun as well. So I think if you would ever want to be summarized into 4 words, that is a pretty nice 4-word combination that you were summarized here. So to summarize a little bit, I just want to start the podcast by obviously highlighting the fact that you've had an incredible journey with Aspire Global, just going from strength to strength, acquiring the right opportunities, doing the correct strategic changes in the right times when it was needed. And it has got you to this point where now obviously Neogames is taking over to an to a valuation that is a lot higher than just a couple of years ago. So my first question to you, I guess, Tsachi, is can you summarize a little bit the journey that you've had with Aspire Global, and can you talk us through a little bit of why you think is behind this massive success that the company has had?
First of all, thank you very much. I never heard a summary in front of me about myself, so it's a little bit. I'm a little bit embarrassed from it. So thank you very much, Pierre, and also an opportunity to say that you followed the company and us for a very long time, and also to thank you for the support. So if I will take it back around 9-10 years ago, so yes, when I came from Playtech, so Aspire Global was a small company that was mainly on B2C, and we saw that even if the B2C was around 70-80% of the revenue, we thought that if we will give the products, the platform that we have for 1, 2, 3 more partners, maybe we'll be able to fund better the B2C. So we still had the B2C in our vision. This was the main goal, to grow the B2C through the partners that are using already our platform, so to scale from that. But fast enough, we saw that the product is good, that the partners that we have are growing nicely. And then we said, okay, the company is strong, it's profitable, it's already around 40% B2B, 60% B2C. And we said, okay, if we are looking ahead 5-10 years from now, where will be our core success? We understood that it will be B2B. We just knew that it will be B2B. But on the way, there are things that we knew that we need to do in order to be perceived as a B2B. And the first one was to list the company in Stockholm. It's true that we were a very profitable company before, but we knew that if we want to sell our products and to come to big companies that have board members that usually go and decide to go with a company that is the safest to go with, we understood that we need to be public, because as a public company, you are more transparent, all your numbers are out, all your business is out, and we thought that this transparency will give us the push that we need in order to start the ride into the mainstream of the B2B. So this was the first step, and we did it successfully in Sweden a little bit more than 4 years ago. But it was only the first step, because we knew that in order to complete it, or at least to control the B2B environment, especially in regulated markets, which back then was not that sexy to talk about, because it was very heavy cost and a lot of preparation for the technology. So it wasn't that attractive to speak about regulations. But we knew that in order to win the future battle of the regulation, for the operators, we need to own some products. And this is where the acquisition started, the acquisition strategy and the journey started with Pariplay, BtoBet, recently with end-to-end, the bingo product. And of course, the last piece was to sell the B2C. So we are pure B2B. And then we know that from here, we just need to grow further. So this is in like 3-4 minutes why we went and list the company and why we did those acquisitions. Because it's in the future, regulated markets, it's here to stay and to expand. Yeah. So this is our strategy, and I'm happy that it's growing from that aspect. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you know, I'm curious to know as well, Tsachi, like, why did you choose to offload the B2C parts in order to focus on the B2B? Why not the opposite, or why not focus on both?
We thought that a B2C needs its own focus. It's a different focus than having a B2B, and to have those two verticals running in parallel, we knew that it will, in some point, in some size of Aspire, it will be one account the other, on account the other. And this is where we understood that if from the beginning our vision and strategy was to be a B2B leading supplier, so we understood that we will need to diverse the B2C, and we just looked for the right opportunity, right structure. And if you saw, even if we sold the B2C, it stayed on our platform and product. So this is a win-win for us to sell something, but it's still enjoying our products and we will receive royalties from it. So we are still supplying them whatever they need. So this is something that it was clear to us that if we need to sell something, it will be the B2C.
Okay, but yeah, go ahead.
Do you still hear me?
Yes, yeah, exactly. You did it. Yes,
we wanted to focus. We needed to focus on the technology. We needed the money to invest more and more in the technology and the products in order to be an even better B2B supplier.
Okay, interesting. So essentially, you feel that had you continued with both B2B and B2C, you kind of spread yourself thin as an organization. It's difficult to focus on operational excellence when you were doing everything at once. Is that kind of the truth?
Yeah. Yes, this is the thing, because they both grew to a very nice size, and when you are in a very big size, we thought that it will harm each one of them if we will continue to do it together. So this was the reason to divest one of them.
Yeah, interesting to hear. And I'd like to know as well, Tsachi, just going back to yourself here as the CEO of Aspire, looking back at the last 8 or 9 years in the company, I would be really curious to ask you, what do you feel is your biggest success in the company? And what is your, let's say, the biggest challenge that you have or a failure that you had in the organization?
I think that the biggest success is that we, in those years, we were able to have almost the same management and mid-management that were with us in the beginning to stay with us to date. And this is something that we believe that the way we are running the company gives a lot of the management and empowering them to do a lot of things that they are believing in. So this is a huge success that we still have many of the mid-management and management that started with us many years ago. So this is something that I'm very happy for. And the second, the challenge, is as a public company, you are all the time in front of the investors. They are testing you for each and every step that we are doing. And when we needed to block markets and to report that we have a decrease in revenues because of this shutdown market, so to stand in front of the investors and tell them, guys, it's for the long term.
Yeah.
It will pay off, because we don't want to jeopardize you as shareholders, to jeopardize the company. So we prefer lower revenue in some aspects, but to grow dramatically in the long term. And this is a very tough decision, where you see a lot of companies going into those black markets and enjoying the fast income. We chose not to be there, and it's not easy when you are in the boat with the storm around you. So this is challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Elon Musk famously regretted that he took Tesla public because of the inflexibility that it gives you, and you have to kind of adhere to shareholders and so on. Was that ever a consideration on your end as well? Like why did we go public, or were you always happy that you were a public company?
You know, it's a very nice question. It's a very nice question. Luckily for us, we were not valued so high when we went listed, so we didn't have a lot to lose. So
All
we
right.
were listing the company in a very severe and modern valuation. So we didn't have a lot to lose from the beginning. It was a profitable company. So for sure, we looked only long term. So it didn't affect us to the stage where we wanted to delist the company.
Yeah, yeah. And like what are the considerations when you look to list a company? What are the main pros and cons in your opinion when you consider if you want to take your company public or not?
I think that the two main considerations is a positive one is that you have the visibility that everybody knows what you're doing. You are a transparent company, and it helps you to do some transactions in the market. Second, it's a strong access to money. If you want to grow also not only organically but also inorganically to acquire companies, so you have a nice access to money and capital to gain growth from that aspect. So this is the advantages, and the disadvantages out of it is the stressful times where you are thinking also if you want to do it for the next quarter or something good for the next year. So
Yeah.
this balance, because you know that you are being measured quarter after quarter and not necessarily year after year. And this is a huge tension in the decisions on the ground if to do things only for the next quarter or to the next year. So this is the challenge in it.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And it takes, like you said, strong leadership in order to educate the shareholders to think more longer term and so on. And I guess some publicly traded companies have shareholders that are not really interested in the company, but perhaps they think very short sighted. Whereas what you want to do is to build up a base of shareholders that are there for the long term, right? Like, it's not always so easy, I would assume.
Yes, it's a very good point. If I will look on Aspire Global, so the founding shareholders still hold almost 70% of the company. And they didn't sell even one share
Oh.
since the moment we listed the company in Sweden. So it's showing you that they are truly long term. Usually, when you will look on other peers of us, the biggest shareholders hold maybe 10%, 12%, 8%. This is the biggest shareholder. With us, the biggest group of shareholders, the founding one, almost 70%. So it's clearly only long term. They don't want to do something just to round the circle.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. And speaking of that, if I understand things correctly, obviously there's a history between Aspire Global and Neogames. If I understand it correctly, it is the same founder to both companies. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up to clarify, like what is exactly the history and relationship between Aspire Global and Neogames? And as you mentioned here now, the founding partner has 70% of the shares in the company, and that is the same investor as the founder to Neogames as well.
Yes, so they have also the majority shares in Neogames. The same founding group have the majority shares, a little bit less than the 67, 70% that they have in Aspire, but still they have the majority. And if I'm going back to the history, so it used to be the same company until 8 years ago. And in this one big company, we had two verticals, lottery and gaming. And the lottery was only the startup of it. So most of the profits that came from the gaming vertical went into the lottery in order to grow and grow and grow until we got into the conclusion that if we will continue fund the lottery, the gaming itself will not grow. This is where we decided to spin off Neogames outside and to have the two companies growing independently of each other. So this is the history until 8 years ago. And now, 8 years after, it's two very big companies that were successful enough to get into this size alone, and to lead each one in its own vertical. Neogames, it's a leading supplier in the iLottery, and Aspire is a leading supplier in the iGaming. And the idea is to merge into and becoming one of the biggest suppliers in the world in a very, in the short period.
Absolutely. You're going full circle here, going back to Neogames, in other words. And it leads me, I guess, to another question here, which is on the sale itself, on the process of the sale that is impending here to Neogames. First of all, I'd like to ask, were you actively looking for a buyer to Aspire Global? Because we speculated at Agrimex a lot of times that you were very well positioned to be acquired, especially from a US point of view. You obviously were working hard to establish BtoBet and Pariplay, and seeing that you had a very strong leadership team and products. We thought as well that you were ripe for an acquisition. Is that something you guys talked about as well? Were you trying to position the company for a sale, or what were your thoughts in general?
This is another tricky thing as a public company. You cannot look for buyers, because if you will look for a buyer, fast enough it will go into the market, and then it will jeopardize the share price. It will be very volatile from the rumors, and it's a very risky thing to do. So this is something that we cannot do. So we didn't look for a buyer. We understood that the value and what we were able to build as a very strong proposition for a potential thing out there, but we can't and couldn't and didn't look for it.
Fair enough. And when it actually transpired here, so you were in conversations, I guess, for a period of time here with Neogames to negotiate and so on and so forth. Personally, I'm very interested in the psychology of mergers and acquisitions. The negotiation that goes into it, the psychology behind the negotiation, how tough shall you be in a negotiation, how much do you want this deal to happen, and so on. And so I'm really curious to ask you as well, Tsachi, can you explain how this process went down? Who contacted who first, and how do you? Or I mean, you have gone through other acquisitions in general. I mean, you acquired BtoBet and Pariplay and so on. How do you start the conversation with the company that you want to acquire? Do you kind of send an email to the owner, are you for sale? You know what I mean? What's the starting point, and then how do you what kind of strategy do you choose as you go forward into the negotiation in order to make a deal happen?
When we acquired a private company, so the only challenge that we have is to create two needs for the company. One, that they need to be acquired. This is my work on the owner that we are talking with. And the second, I succeeded convincing him that it needs to be acquired, why it needs to be Aspire to acquire. So this is one thing that is going with a private company. With a public company, it's much different. You cannot go to a company and starting creating the needs and this and that. There is a much formal way to start, and it's where the acquiring company sending a letter to the chairman of the company that they want to buy. So it starts with a letter saying, we evaluated your company with this and that and that and that. We followed up for some time. We want to continue to a bid. How to do it? This is what we thought, and this is what we believe we can do. So, and this is where the bid starts to evolve, with a lot of negotiation in between before they feel confident enough to make it public.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So it's a lot more formal process essentially when we deal with two listed companies. This is quite interesting to hear, of course. So there's not much like hard negotiation happening behind closed doors in some boardroom back and forth type of thing. It's a much more formal process. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very hard negotiation
Okay.
because first of all, the negotiation is for the price. What is the right
Yeah.
price? Second is how do you make sure that the employees that you have will continue? You need to think about the employees. So it's a lot of things around many aspects that we wanted to make sure that the shareholders of Spire Global will receive the best return for their investment.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, Tsachi, jumping here from one thing to the other, I'm mindful of time here. We don't have oceans of time today, but one thing that is transpiring as we speak is your former employer, Playtech, has been in the news a lot in the last couple of months because there was a bid that emerged a couple of months ago by Aristocrat to acquire Playtech. And in the months that transpired here now, there's been several other potential bids from other organizations as well, but they have fallen through. And today, the shareholders of Playtech is voting whether to accept this original bid by Aristocrat or not. And it's leaning towards that they will actually not follow through with the bid that has been put on the table here. And there's a lot of controversy around why that is. It's a group of investors that are seemingly voting against this proposed acquisition, and this means that Playtech might pursue a different strategy when it comes to potentially breaking up the company and selling off parts of it. I know that Entain is one of the potential companies that might be interested in parts of Playtech. But since you have history, and I know that it's a topic that is close to your heart in general, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Playtech and Aristocrat potentially failed bid that we have in front of us here, and what happens next.
It's fascinating, Pierre, because when a company committed to a bid, they have high certainty that it will be completed. They don't know until the end if it will be completed, but they have high certainty for it. And if we look on Aristocrat and Playtech, they truly have the majority of the shares voting for them. But to come into the final date with the majority of the shares voting for you, but it's not enough in order to complete it. It means a lot for Aristocrat and for the Playtech shareholders. It's like a roller coaster that only the time will say how Playtech will go out of it, and also Aristocrat. But let's see, in the next few hours, what will come up from this meeting. If at the end it will fail or succeed. I believe that a lot of Playtech shareholders are now waiting to see what will be the final verdict. And personally, I didn't see a lot of bids not completing the process. It will be the first if it will happen. And I'm sure that it's not an easy one for either side. So it's an unbelievable movement, especially when you see the markets volatile with valuation in US and Europe and everything, and you have a bid, and also this bid is not happening. So where is the stability in the market? It's very interesting what is happening.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, the rumors here is that there is a small group of investors in Asia, of a small part of owners of Playtech, who have been acquiring shares essentially in order to be able to vote down this bid essentially from Aristocrat. So as you are saying, it is an extraordinary situation, and Playtech board has unanimously recommended the shareholders to take the bid, and still it seems like, and it's still a good premium of the current share price. And still, it seems like the bid is actually going to fall through. But for you who are close to Playtech in general, I assume that you have old friends working there and so on. I mean, Playtech is one of those companies that are they kind of have their hands in many different cookie jars. Let's say they were kind of pursuing a similar strategy as to what Aspire was pursuing previously, with trying to own all verticals essentially. And now they are communicating that if this bid falls through, they might actually break up the company in some sense and sell off parts of this company. Like, what do you think in general that Playtech should do as they go forward here? Is it the right strategy to pursue this kind of all vertical strategy, or what comes next, do you think?
I think, and this is from an outside view, is the fact that they were perceived as a B2B supplier, but a big chunk of their revenues came from Asia. This is according to their public reports. And when they saw that those income is not sustainable and shrinking from time to time, they decided that they need to increase volumes in a very fast mode. So then they started to acquire B2C operations, where they bought SNAI and got into an investment with Caliente. So Playtech today have a big chunk of their revenues is B2C revenues. So if you're asking me about the future, if this bid will not happen, I think that they will need to decide themselves where they are, if they are on the B2C side or on the B2B side. And this is the first thing I think that they will need to have in their mind in order to understand how they are taking their attention here or there, because they became very big. So this is a question mark, if they will continue to invest in the B2C or in the B2B. And in regards to the threat to sell their assets, it's a question if they can do it and how fast they can do it. And think about the employees that already see the exit, the cash coming, and what happens now if it's not coming. Will they stay in the company? Not. So it's not easy times, this uncertainty for this size of a company like Playtech.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of uncertainty and brings a lot of volatility, of course, and what comes next and so on. At the same time, you would think that there would be a quite decent interest to acquire Playtech, at least parts of the company. Like the live department, of course, is number 2 to Evolution. Could be like looking at the share price of Evolution. It is obviously a quite attractive thing to think that you should be taking the live department of Playtech and accelerating it now that they are entering into the United States and so on. Comparing the market cap of Evolution and Playtech, you can see that there is room for growth, of course, especially on the live side. So I guess even though there is a lot of ambiguity with what's going to happen with Playtech, there's also I would say a lot of hope for Playtech as well as we go forward here as well. And already there are interests on the B2C side to be acquired by Entain and others as well. So it'll be interesting to follow.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So a final question here as well, Tsachi. I want to just slide back for a moment with obviously. I guess the deal as we speak right now with Neogames is still up for a vote, so it hasn't been signed off yet, so to say. But assuming that Neogames will acquire Aspire Global and that the shareholders will approve this deal, what comes next for you, Tsachi? And what comes next for Aspire Global together with Neogames? Like, what would be the vision here in general?
So the idea is we drafted it, or as Neogames explained to their shareholders, is that there will be 2 divisions in this group. It will be the Aspire Global iGaming division and the Neogames iLottery division. Me personally, I will continue to do what I'm doing today and to lead the iGaming business within the group. And in order to also to have the view of the overall group, and they are asking me to be the president of the group. So it will give me also insights of what is happening in the iLottery, and to try and, of course, optimize everything that we have in the group in order to generate more business to these two divisions. So this is how it should look, how it's planned to look. So not majority cost saving, because we want each company to continue and grow, but very much revenue synergies, opening doors to each other and to grow even faster than before. So this is the plan.
Absolutely. It sounds very exciting, Tsachi, and I'm excited to see how this is going to transpire and to follow the company's journey here into the future as well. It's been great to have you here today, Tsachi. It's always great to talk to you and have you on the podcast and have your insights here. And so I'd like to thank you for that. And do you have any last words here today? I'll leave you with the final words today, Tsachi.
Exciting times, and I want to thank you very much also for the opportunity to speak, to talk, and to be visible. And I hope for a good future and prosperity for the Spire Global clients, because we are planning a lot of good things for them in the future.
Absolutely. That's a great way to close things off today. Thank you so much, Tsachi, and I hope to see you in person soon.
For it. Thank you very much. Bye.